Now then, shall we move on to the hot topic of today? The Tolkien was woke nonsense.
Oh
Now,
boy.
I still have the actual thread because
You're not
I
blocked?
only retweeted them, whilst Kyle, of course, waded in there.
I had to wade in there. I always have to monster. Then I got blocked.
You can bring up this one. This is like an article from Bounding into Comics talking about it. Bounding into Comics is a nice website too, which I would certainly recommend.
Oh yeah, I already have it open. Derp.
Derp. But yeah, we won't go through the whole little thread because I already made a video about that. Let's instead talk a little bit more about how goddamn right we were. Literally last week, we were like, this is going to happen. It is an inevitability because Lord of the Rings is now a massive goddamn franchise, and that is going to attract a lot of people who are thinking to themselves, a payday. Or if not a payday, then influence. This is a platform I can subvert. And a lot of them, like the OneRing.net people, like these are a bunch of dudes running a bloody Twitter account for a website. Like these aren't personalities. They don't have the charisma to run it on their own. They've literally latched onto a name as a fan site, and now they're beginning to editorialize, essentially, you know?
Yep.
And it's because of power. They think like, oh, look at all these people we have following me, they think, as they sit there on a fan account for a fan site and so on.
Yeah. Oh my god. People like that on Twitter. Oh my fucking god. So Arch just nailed one of the cancerous things on Twitter that, and just any platform in general, not just Twitter. But like people will make fan accounts and it'll dedicate it to posting like, oh, check out this cool model made for Lord of the Rings, or check out this cool artwork, and people will follow it. And then they, once they get a big enough following, they're like, and it's time to reveal my true colors. It's like some sort of fucking shitty comic book villain. And then like, actually, SJWs were right, and the fandom should be subverted, and Tolkien was a super woke bro, and they just keep going on and on and on and on, trying to immediately hijack it and make it about them. Like that is most fan accounts or fan anything. Like these people are parasites. They like to latch themselves and attach themselves to a pre-existing IP and use that as a mask to basically subvert other people. That's at least what they try to do. But the problem is most people don't care. Like, I like Lord of the Rings, and this fan account, you're like, okay, we have a common interest in Lord of the Rings. But the minute you try to subvert it, like, I don't really care what your opinion is. It's silly.
It's inevitable. Like this is why we managed to predict this before it happened, because this is the playbook. Now, again, I want to reiterate too, like, if you have an interest in Lord of the Rings, then, yeah, going after this one Twitter account arguing with them is going to achieve nothing. This is a bunch of little incompetents sitting in a room somewhere, whinging, not even whinging at something, coming it up with a completely random straw man that is Ian McKellen was apparently a controversial choice for Lord of the Rings, which, really? Then people are like, "Hey, can you back this up? Who the hell was arguing that Ian McKellen was the worst thing to have happened to Lord of the Rings?" In their words, bigot. We don't have to educate you on everything.
Yeah, I don't think anybody cared about Ian McKellen. I know Chris Lee wasn't he friends with Tolkien? I think he wanted to actually play the role of Gandalf, if I remember right, but he just got stuck with the Sauron bit, which he did a fantastic job.
He did a fantastic job as Sauron, but he did want to play Gandalf.
Or Saruman.
No, honestly,
fuck, I'm retarded. Help
Sauron
me.
is details. But Chris Lee looks evil.
He does. He also plays a fucking, like, he plays Count Dooku, and he's just fantastic at being a bad guy character.
Yes. Christopher Lee just looks evil. I'm sorry, but he is the perfect villain. He really is.
He's got that perfect voice for it, too.
And as I reiterated as well, like, Ian McKellen was not in any way, shape, or form a closet homosexual. Like, he was open about this. And as much as I do love his role as Gandalf, I also got to point out he was a little bit of an ass when it came to his political activism of this. A little bit of a proto SJW, in fact. I know, it's mean, it's horrible, but like, one of the things I reacted quite poorly to was that apparently, when he was talking to a politician discussing a bill that they were trying to introduce, this bill was specifically saying that the government cannot promote gayness or any sexuality. The government has no business with this, which I'm entirely in agreement with. The government should not be promoting anything in that way, be it heterosexuality, homosexuality, whatever. It's not the government's goddamn business.
Yes.
But after having this debate, the politician was like, okay, we're sorry we disagree on this, but could you write an autograph to my children? Because they're huge fans.
Of course
And
not.
he agreed.
Oh,
And
did?
then he wrote, fuck you, I'm gay, on the autograph to the man's children.
Oh, that is fucking, like, that is extraordinarily unprofessional. The thing is...
Yeah, like, at that point, just say no.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Like, these are, like, this is just a simple thing. Like, these kids don't need to be involved in that. The fact that he wants to involve kids in that dispute is creepy and almost pedophilic in a way. But it's just wrong. Like, it's
That's
like...
a step too far. Condemn,
It's
condemn.
just weird. Like, why would you do that? Like, oh, these are for little kids. And it's like, yes, I'm going to write that on there. Like, do you not have any, like, conscience? It's like, oh, yeah, little kids. Fuck your dad, by the way. I really fucking hate him. Like,
I just thought it was extraordinarily rude, and it was also lauded at the time. Like, look at this proud and brave thing. I'm like, this is just being an asshole, right?
wow, I just lost a lot
This
of
is just
respect
being
for
an
Ian McKellen today, though. I didn't even know that happened, but Jesus Christ, that's embarrassing.
I really didn't like that because he was very openly political about this as well. But here comes the important part. He has an absolute right to say whatever the hell he wants about this, and I have a right to say he was a rude little bastard
Yep.
about this. But it did not, and this is the important part again, it did not influence his acting role in the slightest. And that is what he should be lauded for. Like, he did a
restrain himself
fantastic
with that,
job.
at least.
But
But
I don't even
again,
think he
that's...
restrained himself. Like, I think he had pride in both being gay and as an actor, as a professional.
Do you take pride in being a heterosexual?
That's another argument, isn't it?
Like, pride itself is not it's not a virtue.
It
it's
is not a
vice.
virtue, no.
It's okay to take pride in your work or a little bit of pride, but pride is an easy step down the roads of just being an absolute cunt. So in my mind, like, you have to be careful. It's okay to take pride in your work and to be prideful in some things, but to be prideful in general is not a good trait.
Well, that is another interesting segue, isn't it? Because, of course, they also went on to say that Tolkien was totally woke. Tolkien, as a devout Catholic, I showed a couple pictures of some of the truly appalling stuff that has gone down at gay pride parades, which I think actual gay people would condemn strongly, as it often involves goddamn children. But I do not think Tolkien for a second would agree with the idea of pride for pride's sake.
Pride for pride's sake is bad. That is extraordinarily bad. And the thing about, like, Tolkien being quote-unquote woke is this is also a silly, outlandish notion. Tolkien was a reasonable man. And of course, he's like, yeah, no, every man should be fairly treated equally. No shit.
Mhm.
We all deserve to be treated
Vehement
equally.
opponent of the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not woke-like behavior. Woke is the extreme politicization of that, where it's actually become... Like, the wokeists themselves are inherently sexist and racist. They are the modern-day, like, fascists. Like what fucking, what was it, Churchill said? The next form of fascism we see will be like in the form of the anti-fascist. I'm paraphrasing quite a bit.
I must crush your dreams and hopes there, Kyle, by informing you that that is, in fact, sadly, a fake quote.
That's not real? Oh, who's
Nope.
that from then?
I don't remember off the bat, but I do know that is a misquote.
Okay. Well, you learn something new every day. Now, who said that? Chat, do you know?
Chat probably doesn't know.
I was
Chat
thinking it
is
was
a fine hive
Winston.
mind.
That was a wrong person. I misquoted for somebody else. Wrong credit.
And then there's the thing too, like, our current society fetishizes actors to a hilarious degree.
Oh,
Like, the
God.
Romans had the right approach to this. The actors were some of the lowliest creatures on Earth.
Well, the thing about actors is they should just be treated as equals. They don't deserve the special treatment. They don't deserve to be worshipped and lauded. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we attribute wisdom to them in a strange way. Like when a famous person says something, it suddenly has gravitas to it. And you have to then ask yourself, like, this has happened in sports too now, which is even more ridiculous. Like, a professional basketball player involves themselves in politics whilst bending the knee to China. And you really have the urge to say, like, man, you put a ball in a hoop for a living, okay? That's impressive. I couldn't do that as well as you could, but that does not give you a license to comment on world politics.
Yes. It's like, ah, yes, because I can play with balls really well means that my opinion is now infinitely superior to anyone else because I'm really good with balls. It's like, okay, thank you for
And
sharing.
hey,
Thank you.
I recognize the slight hypocrisy in that as well, because I'm not a philosopher or university graduate on any of this, but I do endeavor to go in depth and examine the topics I talk about. And at the end of the day, I have never presented myself as anything else than a rando talky person on the internet.
Yeah, we're just, we're not really shit posting, but we're just sort of spouting our opinions on the internet. And whether you agree or disagree is totally up to you guys. You don't have to agree with everything we say. We don't have to agree with everything you guys say. That's just the nature of dialogue, which is apparently racist, by the way. You can't do that anymore.
Of course it is. But the Amazon series is coming up, and we are probably not going to see the likes of Sir Ian McKellen, a person who will take the role and elevate the role above his own politics, above himself. And that is where the real gatekeeping clinch comes in. Because again, the Lord of the Rings Twitter account is facile, it's worthless, it doesn't mean anything.
It's just a
But
Twitter account.
Amazon, bearing in mind, companies have demonstrated again and again they don't actually give a shit about the politics. They care about the profits. If they are called out actively on this, if it happens, which it probably will, that will have consequences. Again, when you're trying to gatekeep something like this, you have to look for the largest conceivable podium from which to do it from. Which is why me and Kyle are planning to cover the Lord of the Rings Amazon series, because that'll be hilarious. And hey, as we said before we even started, if it's great, fantastic, awesome, great.
Yeah.
If it's terrible, fantastic, awesome,
Fantastic.
great.
We can still profit off it, even if we're miserable watching it.
It's the same for us. Like if it's good, then fantastic again. That actually means our fears were unwarranted.
I would rather be wrong too. Like if it's a good show,
Oh, yeah.
that means we have more good Lord of the Rings content. And that's a win for the fandom, that's a win for everybody. If it's bad, well then we just get to make fun of it. I
The
hope it's
best
not,
possible
though.
outcome is that grumpy old cynics like us are completely wrong on this.
Yes. And I'd rather be wrong. Because if it means we're being wrong, like when we're talking about games or anything like that, because we have a very pessimistic outlook, don't we? I think so. And if we're wrong, that's awesome because we get a good game or we get a good show. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's better than having a bad show. Because I'm getting real sick of bad shows. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it.
I swear I was an optimist just 5 years ago.
It felt like that. It felt like God. I remember like back when the PS2 and the Xbox 360 days, like the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, it was like everything was just happy. There was like good games, good shows, everything was fine. And then it's like it all of a sudden just felt like a switch was flipped when I finally started realizing. Because I remember when Gamergate was happening, and I was like, I didn't care. Like everybody's like Gamergate, and I'm like, meh. I just play video games. I just want to grill. You know, that kind of mentality. And then it wasn't until I just started seeing it take place in the forums of like Creative Assembly, where people just started like censoring people and stuff like that. It's like that's just dumb. Like this is about a video game. This is about a piece of fiction, and yet we're like overly politicizing it. And that's when I finally, the word woke is retarded. I was like, that's when I finally awoke to the idea of like SJWs and all that stuff, and I started seeing that stuff. Like this is disgusting.
Kyle awoken.
Yeah, because I think everybody here, even you, had reached that point where you were like just trying to mind your own business, and then just the shit just kept piling up. Always, just keeps smacking you in the face, and you just get sick of it.
And you realize that minding your own business is not going to actually help.
No, because they'll attack you. Like, Stone Toss is kind of a little bit retarded, but he's got this one comic that's actually sensible. That's with the wheel thing that rolls to the left, crushing people. It's like, I think it's time to stop. Well, I'm far down. I'm not far down the left side, but like I'm far down the line from getting crushed. But I see that wheel coming, and I'm like, I think it's time we stop that wheel. Like maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't do this cancel culture stuff. Maybe we should stop. Maybe that's a bad thing. We all have different opinions, but being canceled for opinions is the most dumbest thing I think ever. But whatever.